Hello! We're back with the episodes of Metanoia of the 20s. So, we're gonna continue with our pilot season in English. Again, this is the first time we're doing this. Today, we have a very, very special guest with us, Akshay, my dear, dear friend. I met him last year on my great adventure in the UK, and he has agreed to be a part of this podcast, a part of this program. And we're gonna be talking about some of a pivotal moment in everyone's life that is defining what your passion is and going towards it, even if it's not exactly what society or maybe your family or friends or people who are around you may think is the right path. So, actually, thank you so much for being with us today and for accepting to be on the program. So, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, talk a little bit more about you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ale, for having me. First of all, I think it's such a pleasure. And I just want to say that I'm really excited for this conversation. First of all, because one has learned so much from you, one has experienced so much of your humility, your time, and I'm very excited to talk to you about it. About myself, I'm a theater director and a playwright based in Delhi, and I'm also a part-time entrepreneur, which is to make ends meet, and mostly I'm directing and writing stuff for the theater. Recently, I also started working with camera, and my experience is mostly related to storytelling, so that's my thing.
That's why you're perfect for this kind of program because I remember that when we first met, we didn't study the same thing. Like a master's degree in the UK for the past year, but we weren't studying the same thing. And I remember that the first person that I met at the house where we lived was Akshay because I arrived in the UK and it was like 3 days that I was in the house and I didn't meet anyone. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm alone in this huge house. There's no one here. And I remember the first person that I meet is Akshay in the kitchen, and he always greeted me with a smile. He's the most kind person that I've met there, and he's such a good friend. And he started talking to me about like what he was studying, which is theater directing, and I loved it because I always had a passion for theater as well. So we kick it off talking about this amazing subject, and I admire him so much because he went for his passion to do this, and I ended up following, yeah, sure, something that I always liked, that is business as well. But I would have liked also to be able to take that step and study something else that I actually have a real passion for. So, actually, what made you make this decision after, because you also studied business, what made you make this decision of going against this, not against, but maybe taking a different turn in your life?
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the most, like, if I am going to look at myself as a character, probably one of the most pivotal moment for me is to probably shift from business towards theater and constantly negotiate my relationship with the market in general. And that is because, I mean, you if you're living in a metropolitan city, it's impossible to not engage with the market. I mean, you can be ignorant of it or try to avoid facing it, but you have to have a relationship with the market. And so just understanding that, time it took a lot of time. So while I was in undergraduate, I undergraduate program, I pursued a Bachelor of Management Studies, which from a college which is really good in India, and probably the really most like I would say really you get a very interesting bunch of people into that program, and all of them are really geared up to pursuing careers in management and consulting, and even in marketing you have very interesting people pursuing interesting life paths in corporate, in business, and generally very conventionally deemed as successful people study. And but there is also a trap that I've experienced in that in that in that sort of crowd, that you have a certain kind of echo going around of what uh, things are supposed to be, how life is supposed to go. So I guess, I mean, in college I was introduced to theater, which is where I spent most of my time devoting myself to the like the way it is made and how stories are told, and that really excited me. And I think while I was pursuing it, I also found really meaningful teachers, not conventional teachers or professors, but they were like, you know, you find you find people who you can call teachers, but they're not like your teachers. So a playwright whose play I was directing, I used to ask him questions over email. I used to request him to send me more of his plays, and I used to write to him like, I'm a friend of his, and he was generous to respond back to me. And I think that kind of got me into the act of understanding the mind of an artist who is in his middle who is middle aged and who is in the middle of his career or life. And that got me really like, how does this guy think? I mean, what is he thinking about? What is he talking about? What are his goals, and what is his life? How does he orient his life? Or and then generally just my mind really opened up, because it was really the right kind of pivot to break that echo chamber that was created in a business school. And so just kind of followed his path, followed him into his projects, and followed him without asking for much. Just followed him despite different things coming up. And then, yeah, I and he suggested that I could probably pursue a further training in theater directing, because that is something that I'm really passionate about. And that's how I landed up in a theater directing program. But I talk for a very very long time, so please feel free to cut me off also, Alex.
No, no, no. The idea is not to cut you off. It's a really interesting story how you got to follow that unknown passion at the beginning. And I'm also really interested in the fact that did you find any struggles into people around you accepting your decision? Like your parents, your family, people like also other maybe management professors or something like that, because it's not a conventional decision. Like you say, in the university where you studied, usually people look forward to being maybe CEO of a big company, doing their own thing in the business world. So it's like, no, I want to do theater. So it's like, why? Why do you want to pursue that? So did you find that struggle? Did you find that challenge?
I think the biggest challenge is to convince yourself. Convincing other people is just probably like, updating your Instagram status. It's not that hard. It's just, you just have to do it. But it's the hardest thing to do is to convince yourself, because of course, like, you see a life that has the prospect um of of reliability, predictability, and lack of risks. And that certainly seems like something that one would want to pursue, because it's safe. At the same time, it is what you are destined for. So in India, for instance, we have this caste system where people's name are sort of designated by a certain kind of identity. So it's basically racism, but in the context of a caste system. So probably, in a conventional sense, people's motives and life histories and life goals were decided at their birth, right? So whenever they were born, they were decided destined to be, like, a farmer's son used to be a farmer, and a historian's son will probably become a scholar, a doctor's son will become a doctor. And that generally is was very prevalent. I think it is a system that is the most powerful system in India, and it is very difficult to break. So, if my father was a business person, it is conventionally understood that I would follow in his footsteps. And pursuing an undergraduate program certainly does not help your case, because you see, you have to then pursue a life in business. But I guess a lot of my psychological process has always been about my own understanding of my work and my relationship to it, rather than
Mhm.
what is generally said about it, or what is generally how people look at it. That has never led me to any place that is meaningful. I think whenever I've had a relationship with my work which is very positive and that leads me to a meaningful place, I guess that those are the times when other people have also sort of found it meaningful to engage with it. If I am trying to take a decision that is meant for the appeasement of the other, I think it just certainly it leads me to a very unclear place, and that's not my place. Then it's just a very vague kind of a decision and a vague kind of a thing to do. So, but all of this to say, I don't know everything. I mean, I have to
Yeah.
say this because it's so important to put it out. I'm still figuring things out. I'm very young. I'm supposed to learn the best things, best skills of my life in the next few years. That's how I see
Mhm.
it. And I what I'm always thinking of is I'm really curious to learn new things, and that is what really excites me. And so all of this thing of people disappointing people and not living up to their expectations, I'm like, this is expectations also change with time, so it's just a matter of context. I mean, if you really look at it, it's just a matter of context. So people with everyone thinks with their own sort of biases and their own sort of systems of learning. So it's totally acceptable that you will find, whenever you will step out in the world, you will find people who you will disagree with, and that is part of life, so it's totally fine. But what do you think
Exactly.
about this? What do you think about this?
Okay, so just to finish up your idea, I liked it. I liked especially when you mentioned about the safe place, because usually you go to that safe spot. Like I read somewhere, and I think I also talked to you about this before, but usually the mind tries to go where it's safe, where you don't feel any challenges because it doesn't have to overwork. So if you're safe, if you already studied, for example, something that is gonna make you a living really easily, into brackets because everything is hard, but in an easy market, sort of speaking, because everyone agrees, because even it's easy for you going out of undergrad degree program and going to a postgraduate degree into a management program, and even doing it abroad is going to be really easy for you to go back to your country and find a good job. But if you choose the other way around, to follow your passion and maybe something that is not as conventional as what everyone else is doing, then that's getting out of your comfort zone. And that's exactly what you did. That's exactly what many of us are doing. And that's hard to do, not only because I also like what you said about, it's not so hard as convincing others than convincing yourself, because you're the hardest person to convince, and sometimes we are the hardest with ourselves. And it's like, but you already did this, but why are you going to put more struggle into your life? Why are you going to follow this path when you could be working just one job instead of two, and just like getting the money, for example? So I like that, and I also think that way. I think, for instance, I have also told you that I actually wanted to study theater when I was
Yeah,
finishing
yeah,
high school and going
yeah.
to and going to university. And that's
Musical,
something that,
musical theater. Really, you're passionate about it.
yeah, I love it. You saw that I went to the theater every other week, every time that I could, to musicals. But yeah, I love it. I mean, and at some point when I was like doing my research on senior year in Peru, I even got half a scholarship to go to the States and study at a university there. And I know I couldn't have done it because I was younger, and I didn't have the means. But I think I could have done something afterwards. I don't regret the choices that I made, but I also feel like I could have gotten out of that comfort zone. I could have convinced myself to do it and to follow that passion. So I like that. I like that phrase that you used, because sometimes we forget to convince ourselves about the passion that we have, about the path that we want to take, and take more into consideration what everyone else is doing, focus maybe a little bit more on the future. And like you said, we're young. I also love that we're young and we have so much path ahead of us, and we're on their best learning years. So yeah, I mean, why not follow what you actually like doing? I mean, no one else is gonna do it for you, so might as well just like do what you love. So I love that. I mean, I totally agree with you.
I think it's also a matter of context, as I said. I mean, take for example, like someone from a South Asian country, who is obviously, I mean, our parents are generally very conservative. Their value systems are driven by a sort of a post-colonial mindset that, just follow your path and don't mess with the powerful people, and just do your thing, and stay undercover, don't let the officials see you. And so their thinking is very, like, and this is not just in India. I mean, it's across the entire global south. We are all taught to be, um, in a way, sucks. Yeah, I mean, there's a very good phrase that a superstar in India uses. He says, become rich and then become a philosopher. But then, in the process of becoming rich, you lose the philosopher in you. And that is the truth that, I mean, all of us are trying to negotiate with, right? Whether to be rich or to be a philosopher. And so I think, like, in that sense, it's very ironic that that I chose the actual opposite path of uh, doing doing something that would have led to a sort of a sustainable progress in terms of uh, financial means and financial capabilities. But then it's also a certain kind of negotiation that each person needs to do in their own context and situation. And I think, like, with different people, it changes. I mean, say for instance, someone in the West, if you tell them that, someone followed their passion and did theater, they would be like, yeah, that is basically like everyone right now, because there is nothing to liberate themselves of. So it's not something different, or not something unique. I mean, every other person in is following their passion, so that's not really a big thing. I would say, I mean, it certainly depends on the context that you're looking at, that kind of thing. And I guess it's just a matter of context. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, no, I agree. I agree. You're totally right because it's different. The culture, the raising of the people is different. Like you said, especially on the southern or like going down on the globe, because mostly all those countries were conquered or colonized. I also come from that background, and usually the mindset that they put on us is like be a lawyer, be a businesswoman, be a businessman, be a doctor, be anything that's gonna keep you like financially stable. And that's good if you like it.
Absolutely.
But that's the thing, like you said, it's easier for someone maybe, and I have not thought about this until you just said it, but it's easier and well seen to see someone on the northern hemisphere saying, I want to pursue the arts, I want to do poetry, I want to be a philosopher, because after that, if I don't get a job on the field, I just will become a professor, I'll get my PhD, I'll teach at this high prestigious university, and yeah, I mean, money won't be an issue at the end. And it really isn't for them. But if you see that on the other side of the planet, or I mean below, on the southern lands, then the story is different. Usually people who study that are seen as artists and a little bit of as hippies, and yeah, I mean, why don't you like do something else for yourself?
Yeah.
So it's not well seen. Like you said, you went from one to the other, to the opposite, and you're redefining that for maybe not for a lot of people, but at least for a couple of people, because that impacted me. And I think that at least if one person who's like thinking about that listens to this, maybe they will make that choice as well, to follow that path for themselves, to do something they actually like, even if it's not conventional, even if it's not the best option, into brackets again.
I also think at the same time I'm also very aware of uh, of this narrative as well, turning on the opposite side. Because I mean, one has to also be really conscious of making this plunge. I mean, say for instance, it would be really not meaningful if I was unaware of the consequences of this action. I mean, say for instance, the financial implication. As I said, we are constantly negotiating our relationship with the market. So even pursuing an education means an education loan or a scholarship, or
Yeah.
it means so many things that are associated with that decision. So it just, the decision is not just about just I've taken the decision. It's also about backing it up with logic, with craft,
Mhm.
with reason. And I guess that is the real crux of the matter. Because I do think, like, you could be liberated by choosing your something that you dream of, but it might not be meaningful if you back it up with work, with effort, with
Yeah.
sort of discipline, and yes, hard work at the same time, do backing it up with things that are essential to sort of sustain yourself. So even though I'm an artist, I am also financially independent. That is very important for me. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, because it will then become a very skewed relationship with the market. Not saying that that's bad, but
Yeah.
everyone is trying to figure out. But the point is that it's very important to be conscious that, I mean, say for instance, if I am writing, I should know, I should have a very practical relationship with my writing as well. Say, for instance,
Hmm.
it can't just be romantic. It has to be also like, I have to understand that what is being derived out of it. My
Yeah.
relationship with it has to be really significant as well. I have to put my feelings into it, but at the same time, I have to be conscious that when someone reads it, what do they take out of it? So it has to be both things when you're choosing your dreams. So just trying to also caution the winds by just saying that, that is also another side of the coin. And probably that is very interesting. I have to mention this one exercise though. I mean, I whenever I start any process of a play, I generally do this exercise. It's called anti CV. What I do basically in this exercise is I ask everyone, and it's a very good team exercise. So I ask everyone, basically we prepare a resume for applying for jobs, etc., etc. But let's prepare a CV, or an anti CV, a document in which we are going to write all the things that supplement, all the things that encompass our experience, but they are supposed to be in the form of our values, dreams, fears, and a moment that has changed our lives. So basically, what we are trying to write is a document that supplements our CV. So, generally in CV, you just write about your practical
Mhm.
experience in the market, but you don't really write about what you dream of, what are your fears, I mean, what are your value systems, and what happened in your life that changed you. And I think
Mhm.
those things encompass a certain kind of spiritual self, which and I'm very conscious of while using the word spiritual, because I don't want to push people into a spiritual kind of a place. But my point is that it puts a certain kind of spirit into that paper, which is very material. So I feel like that is one exercise that probably has been very useful in terms of understanding the evolution of our own psychologies, our philosophical systems, and our mindset, and how we interact with the world as well. So it's not just a very practical thing. I have worked here, I have done this, I've done that. It's also a very experiential one, that this had this impact on me, and that led me to this, and that's why I dream of that. I think that story is very important for all of us to know, that what is our story. So I guess that anti CV really helps. I don't know if it's useful. Probably you can share some of your thoughts on all of these four things and take it from there.
No, it's actually really interesting. I've not heard about that technique, but I find it really interesting. I mean, to see yourself in a different light than what we're used to see and talk to people, it's it's different. It's unique. Because usually, for example, when someone asks about yourself, you talk about your professional path. So like, but who are you? And there was an exercise I remember in one of my classes as well, where they asked us like, I'm gonna ask you the question, who are you? And you're not supposed to say your name, you're not supposed to say what you studied, and you're not supposed to say anything else that's superficial. And it's super hard to do it because usually that's the only way we see each other. Like
Let's
we
do that
see,
exercise right now.
okay, you start.
That's very easy. You're the host. Okay, you start first. Okay, you can ask the question.
Okay, okay, we'll do it, but let me finish this idea.
Sorry,
Well, I
yes, sorry for cutting you off. Sorry, please continue.
no, it's okay, it's okay. It was good, but let me finish the idea while I think of the answer because it's hard. But yeah, I mean, I like it because it's a way to get to know yourself better. Um, because how can we expect to find a passion to love something that's outside if we don't know ourselves enough, if we don't love ourselves enough, if we don't accept ourselves? And to accept something, you need to know it. So you need to know, why do you like theater, for example? Why do you like cycling? Why do you like any of the hobbies that you have? Is there a reason behind that? How, why do you, I don't know, why do you like cooking? Why do you like to do anything that you like to do? So follow that passion, but know why you like it.
Absolutely.
Know if it's actually something that you want to do in that way. And also, one more thing that I don't want it to slip my mind, but you mentioned at the beginning, it was about privilege. So I also love that. Also, when I mentioned about the fact, like, yeah, go for it, go for your dreams. It's not like, don't be reckless, like, go for it, of course, but like, yeah, keep that mindset of course, that you're gonna follow your passion, but you need to be careful because even if we are artists and we want to follow everything that we want to follow, this world works with money and we need to be financially independent at some point, because you cannot, I mean, if you're privileged and you have your parents or someone who's giving you the money to be able to do it and they believe in you, I mean, amazing, good for you. But still, even so, I think that it's good that you have that mindset that at some point you need to provide for yourself, because that's how it's meant to be. Like, you have to be able to be independent on that way. So follow your dream, follow your passion, but don't be reckless about it. Like, and it's gonna require a lot of hard work. Don't think that it's like, yeah, I love it, I'm gonna go jumping on the field of flowers, it's all gonna be amazing. No, it's gonna require a lot of work. It's also studying, it's also working. And if that doesn't give you money at the beginning, which most probably will be the case, you need to have a side job, you need to do something else. And usually it might not be something that you love as much. So it's gonna require a lot of hard work, but it's also gonna give you a lot of good satisfaction at the end. So I just wanted to finish that idea, that was really good. And about the question about who I am, um um i think I think that a good way to answer that, and you put me on a really tight spot here, would be that I think that I'm growing. I think that I am still developing. I am learning to love myself. I'm on a spiritual path. I'm making mistakes, loads of them, but I'm also learning how to get up and do it again, all over again, all the time. And I think I'm finally finding peace. And I use loving that word. And Shreya taught me how to say it in Hindi. It's like
Shanti.
sukun, sukun.
Spoon. Yes.
Yes.
Say that.
Yeah, finding peace. I'm trying to find peace. So I think that's me. How about you,
That's a
Akshay?
beautiful way to
Who
put
are
it. I think if I was a part of a tree, I would be I would I would be the root. If I was in the sky, I would probably be the cloud. If I was in the river, I mean, I would probably want to be water, but I would probably be just a very small fish, just roaming in a one corner of the river. And if I am like a book, I would be definitely a Russian 18th century book that in a library. So I would probably be in the Russian segment. So that's who I am, I would say. Just
Oh,
putting it
that's
in
nice.
metaphors.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. But you can get to know a person a lot by that. Because by all your metaphors, you're totally an artist. I always say this. You're always flying, and that's really nice. That's really really nice. But yeah, you're always flying. Like you're a cloud. I totally back that out. You're a cloud in the sky.
Just trying to
That's
float
perfect.
around.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And I did want to ask you something else. I mean, we kind of like talked about this a little bit a minute ago, but even if you're following your dream, doesn't mean that it's gonna be easy. So when you find struggles, if you fail at some point during your path, how do you deal with it? How would you suggest someone to find a path towards resilience in that way?
I think by examples. I mean, for instance, my sort of light at the end of the tunnel, if there is any light at the end of the tunnel, is uh, is that is that my teachers or people who have taught me, or the writers or the authors that really inspire me, the stories that really inspire me, sort of lead me towards it. And whenever, and I have a very good metaphor in terms of traveling. So let's say if I am supposed to travel to Mars, right? If I fail to get to Moon, that is okay, because I am supposed to go to Mars, right? So there will be sort of fumbles. I will It doesn't mean that my spaceship just like bursts open. Point is that I may miss my mark of getting to Moon if that is one of the stops in my ultimate destination. But my eventual goal is set by my teachers, by my professors, by the writers that inspire me. And I think every failure is then just a very small step that I missed. I mean, basically, how we learn to walk, how we learn to bicycle. We definitely fall, we cry, and then our parents just come and, or someone, or our guardians just helps us on and says, try again, try again, try again. So it's just probably just the same. I mean, I'm sure anyone who is listening to this already knows that their system of learning allows them to fly if they want to, or if they are because they have all the tools. It's just that it is very difficult to take the first jump, right? I mean, imagine being a bird, very small bird, and taking your first flight. Like, that your parents can fly, that everyone can walk, but it's very difficult to do it for the first time. But and you will fall, you will probably fail, but that's just a process of going towards your teachers, or the people who are teaching you, or maybe just to the place that you want to be. So I guess it's just, I always look at it as like the platform of a station that is a small platform. So, like when we used to travel from Egham to Waterloo, we used to have these small stations like,
Oh yeah,
Aldebro, I don't know, like something like that.
yeah,
Just
weird name.
come and go. So, it doesn't matter if I fail at one of those stations, right? I mean, failure is just one of those events where I miss that mark. My ultimate destination, I have to keep moving, right? If I stop and I'm like, but I failed here, then I'm not going towards that station. So I just look at it as like something that, ah, yeah, I failed here, but that's where I need to go. So I think that ultimate goal really helps me to keep moving forward, regardless of, and failures happen every day. I just had an uncle over, and he just told me just right before this interview started, I directed a TV commercial which he saw on a cinema hall, in a theater. And so he told me that, more people have watched your advertisement than the number of people who will eventually watch your play. But I said, I mean, that doesn't mean that I should shift towards a form that I'm not completely comfortable with, or not completely familiar with. It just means that more meaning is given to the society or the market by consuming or by my work in the camera. But is it good for me? That is a big question mark. So I think that is what one needs to constantly negotiate, I guess. And that's probably been one of the points that I've been saying from the beginning: the relationship with the market and the relationship with the self.
Exactly. I like it. I like it. And just one thing, congratulations. I know it's not your strongest suit, but still congratulations to that commercial. I didn't know that. That's great, actually. Well known. Mr. Director. I like it. I like it. Very good.
Thank
But yeah,
you.
I mean, you're right. You're right about resilience. I think it's a personal path for everyone. It doesn't need to be the same. And my suggestion there, what I would say, the path that I take, if it helps anyone, is acknowledging it. First, acknowledge that it's gonna hurt you, because yeah, sure, I mean, you have on your mind that you're eventually gonna get where you want to get. And this is just like a point where you're breaking, but you're gonna get up and you know it, but still it hurts. So it's still like it's as if you have fallen down, and maybe you have a wound, maybe you have a bruise. So acknowledge it. If you need to feel it, if you need to talk to someone about it, if you just need a day off, acknowledge it. That's my path to resilience. I think that it's really important for us not to just shake it off and keep going, but to actually feel. And after you felt, it's like, okay, I'm gonna give myself one day to feel this. And after that, I'm gonna keep going because I know where I'm going, and I know that I'm still gonna get up, but I need to feel it. And after that, yeah, it's gonna be easier because you know you have learned from that fall, and you know that you're not gonna make the same mistake going through that road, because you know you might fall again. So you will take an alternate road. You'll take another train to Waterloo. Maybe it will take you a little bit longer, but you're gonna get there. So I think that for me, that's the path that I usually take when something bad happens, something that I need to learn from. And yeah, I think that's also really good. I liked what you said as well, so we can mix it up a little bit. But yeah, it's personal. I mean, to anyone who's listening to this, I mean, take your own path, but if these ideas help you, go for it. But I like it. I like it. So actually, wrapping up a little bit, I love the ideas that we've talked about. I love how you make the comparison between the market, like society and everything, and the self. And also, you mentioned a lot about the spiritual journey. I think that on this age gap of the 20s, we're also like triggered towards going to that spiritual journey without, like you said, also without making you do it because you listen to this. But I feel like there's something that makes you want to learn more about it. I don't know what it is, but to anyone that I talk to in this age gap, we mention it. So I mean, go for it. If you're looking towards to find like more spiritual growth, go for it. Learn more about it, read more books about it, and get to know yourself. So those are my final tips on this part. And follow your dream without being reckless. So actually, what are your final tips so we can close it up a little bit?
I just want to really mention that, that anyone who is listening is definitely uh, very wise, is very intelligent, is very learned themselves, and they've experienced things in their lives that probably all of us have experienced in ways, in very little ways. Um, and to all of them, I would just say that, this this communication that is going as unidirectional, it would be so good to hear from you as well, because as I imagine you listening to this, it would be so meaningful to learn from you, to know from you who you are and what you think and how you think about life, how you learn what you learn. And I think that would probably complete it, because right now, while I have shared some things, I don't think that I have any mantras to give as a guru, like, so I probably do not have those. But I do have some questions that, as I said, the anti CV thing. I do have some questions that I can talk about and learn from people who are listening to this. But I definitely think that everyone is very wise and very intelligent, and it would be so interesting to learn from them as well.
I totally agree. And actually, if you have those questions, send them to me. So when I upload the
Absolutely.
episode, I can actually put them on the comments. People can actually answer them, and we'll talk more about that.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
absolutely.
my ego is talking, thinking we're gonna get like 100 listeners. Maybe it's just one, but it will be one story. So
Yeah,
yeah, we can try that.
yeah,
Sounds really nice.
absolutely.
Really, really nice.
And it's,
So
yes,
thank you so much for joining me and joining us on this special episode. I really hope that we can talk about something else on another episode, because you are really good at telling stories. And I love to talk to you more about different subjects, because this guy is a box of surprises. He can talk to you about anything. So we can actually talk about something else.
yeah, I would
So
love
thank
to
you so
talk
much.
about music, Spanish music as well, and sing some lyrics with you.
He knows more Spanish music than I do, so that's saying something. But yeah, and he knows a little bit of Spanish, so yeah, yeah, that's
Thank
true.
you so
That's true.
much.
We can talk about anything.
Thank you so much, Ale, for having me. And I think this has been such a delightful conversation. And yeah, I mean, this is such a wholesome, so many things you've covered, and at the same time, given me an existential crisis at 11 p.m. at what is 12 a.m. in the night. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Now you get to think about something before going to bed. That's great. No, that's great. Actually, thank you so much. So thank you for getting up until this point. Until this point, if you listen all the way through, and don't forget to leave your comments and answers to Akshay's questions on the comments. So see you and hear you on the next one.